Hello students, in this video we are going to discuss about force measurement. This is a new chapter, force measurement or weight measurement. In this chapter we are going to discuss different methodologies used for weight measurement or force measurement. So in this chapter there are three methods for the measurement of force. Before discussing that, let us understand what is force and what is weight. So we know that force is m into a, mass into acceleration, that is force, right? Mass into acceleration, that is force. F is equal to m into a, and the unit of force here is Newton. Unit of force is Newton, right? If we talk about according to the formula, then mass as the unit of kilogram, okay? And acceleration is the unit of, what is the unit of acceleration? Meter square per second or meter per second square? Tell me. Meter per second square. Meter per second square. Okay. This is the unit of acceleration. Okay. So unit of force is kilogram into meter per second square, and combination of this is called as Newton, because this is Newton's second law. Newton's second law, that is force is equal to mass into acceleration. So the unit of force is Newton. Okay. Now, if we talk about weight is known as m into g. Weight is known as m into g, mass into gravitational acceleration. Acceleration due to gravity. Okay. So, if you talk about the unit of weight, then it is also Newton. Weight is also some kind of force. The force with which the earth attracts something, that is known as weight. Okay. So weight is also a force. So unit of force and weight are same, that is Newton. Okay, right? Difference between these two forces, both are force, and difference between these two forces are that this force has magnitude as well as direction. Magnitude as well as direction. So this is vector quantity. This is vector quantity. But if we talk about weight, then it has magnitude. That's right, it has magnitude, but it doesn't have direction. It does not have direction. Okay, so weight is a scalar quantity. Weight is a scalar quantity. The major difference between these two forces are that is force is vector quantity because it has direction also, and weight is scalar quantity because weight doesn't have direction. Okay, so this is the difference between these two forces. Now let us talk about different methods which are used for the measurement of force, or for that matter weight. Okay, measurement methods. Okay, so there are three methods for the measurement of force or weight. These methods are beam balance, load cells, elastic methods. Okay, beam balance, load cells, elastic methods. So for the measurement of force, there are three methods: beam balance, load cells, and elastic methods. Okay. Now, if you talk about load cells, there are three types of load cells. There are three types of load cells: pneumatic, hydraulic and strain gauge load cell. Okay. Strain gauge load cell. Okay. These are also load cells. Right? Pneumatic, hydraulic, and strain gauge. But the third method, that is elastic method. Elastic methods also have three subparts, that is cantilever beams, proving rings, and springs. Cantilever beams, cantilever beams, proving rings, and springs. Okay. All the elements written here. Beam balance, we are going to talk about beam balance shortly, but all the methods in the load cells, that is pneumatic load cell, hydraulic load cell, strain gauge load cell, these are force sensitive, or we can say pressure sensitive elements. Okay. Similarly, in the elastic methods also, these three subparts are cantilever beams. This is force sensitive, proving this is also force sensitive, and spring is also force sensitive element. So for the starting, in the beginning, we are going to discuss about beam balance method. Okay, we are going to discuss about beam balance method. Right now, let us discuss about beam balance. Okay, so there is a beam. Let us suppose this is a beam, and at this point, beam is it can move either way around. Means this portion can go downward and this portion can go downward according to the weight. Okay, so let us suppose unknown force is applied from here. This is the force we want to measure. Okay. Now, by putting some mass, we can balance this force, because mass will apply some weight downwards, and suppose we are applying some force and the beam goes downward. Now replace this mass with another weight, with another mass which can balance this force. The weight which is applied here could balance this force. Now the position of the movement is this. Position of the movement is this. So let us suppose this is length L and this is length. This length is small l. This length is small l. So let us suppose the force is capital F and weight applied here is m into g. Weight applied here is m into g. Right. So at balance condition, when the force applied by this force, okay, the force applied here is equal to the weight of this mass, is equal to the weight of this mass is equal, then this beam will stay horizontal. Okay, it will not move downwards or upward. Right. So at balance condition, mg into small l will be equal to f into l. Mg into small l equal to f into capital L. Right. So from here we can write f as force will be equal to mg small l divided by capital L. Mg small l divided by capital L. From here we can see that L is constant, capital L is constant, G is constant. Okay. So force will be directly proportional to mass put on this side. Mass put on this side. Right? So I think the point is clear. Okay. So at balance condition, mg into small l will be equal to F into L. So F from here will be mg small l divided by capital L. These quantities are constant, capital L, small l and g. So force will be directly proportional to the mass. Okay. So we have advantage here that the relationship between force and mass is linear. Relationship between force and mass is linear. Okay. So this is your beam balance method. Okay. This is beam balance method based on this. If question comes, then you can easily apply this formula. Okay. Write the torque equation and write the torque equation at balance condition. Then from there you can calculate capital F. Right. Now let us come to the second part of the weight measurement method or force measurement method, that is load cell. Okay. So as we discussed, there are three types of load cells, and those are hydraulic type, hydraulic load cell, pneumatic load cell, and third one is strain gauge type load cell. Strain gauge load. There are three types of load cells. Now, first let us consider hydraulic load cell. In this type of load cell, an incompressible fluid is filled in some chamber. Okay, the fluid used. Hydraulic means related to fluid. Okay, hydraulic means related to fluid, and pneumatic means related to air. Okay, so hydraulic load cell is some fluid will be there. Okay, some fluid will be there, and the fluid used, the fluid which is being used in the hydraulic load cell must be incompressible. The fluid used should be incompressible. Incompressible. What does this term means, incompressible fluid? This means that when you apply some pressure on that fluid, then the volume or density of the fluid should not be changed. Okay? When you apply some force or pressure on the fluid, then if the volume and density of the fluid does not change, then that fluid is known as incompressible fluid. Okay? So three parts. It has three parts. Hydraulic load cell has three parts. One is diaphragm. Second one is some fluid chamber, and third part will be spiral burden tube. Spiral burden tube. Okay, spiral burden tube. So if we draw the schematic diagram of the hydraulic load cell, it will be something like this. This is the fluid chamber. This is diaphragm. See this? This is the diaphragm. In this, some fluid is present, and the fluid should be incompressible. The fluid should be incompressible, and here is some spiral type burden tube is present. Spiral type burden tube is present, and the pointer will be like this. This is the pointer used with the burden tube. This is the pointer. Deflection will be shown on the pointer. right? So this is the fluid, this is diaphragm, which is pressure sensitive. Diaphragm is pressure sensitive. Okay, this is diaphragm, and on the diaphragm we will apply force of which we want to measure the value. Okay, the force which we want to measure is applied on the diaphragm, right? So this is the setup. This is the setup of hydraulic load. When you apply force on the diaphragm, it will compress this fluid. It will compress this fluid, and that force will be transmitted by this fluid to this burden tube. Okay, force will be converted into pressure, and that pressure will be transmitted through this fluid, and this pressure will be sensed by the burden tube. This is the spiral type burden tube. This is what spiral burden tube. This is spiral burden tube. And according to that pressure, there will be some deflection on the scale. There will be some deflection on the scale. This is your scale. Okay. So this is the diagram or simple setup for the hydraulic type load cell. Okay, clear? Now, if this diaphragm has area A, this diaphragm has area A, then what will be the pressure applied by this force? Pressure applied by this force, what will be the pressure? Pressure will be P is equal to F by A, Newton per meter square or Pascal. Okay, pressure will be F by A, and this pressure will be sensed by the spiral burden tube, because this pressure is transmitted by this incompressible fluid to this burden tube, and according to that pressure which is being given by this force, which is created by this force, will be sensed by the burden tube, and according to that pressure there will be some deflection. There will be some deflection, and later we can calibrate this deflection in terms of the force. Okay, so this is the concept here, right? So from here we can calculate what? Force can be calculated as P into A. Force can be calculated as P into A. Pressure into area, that is force, right? Okay. Now we know that area is constant. The area of the diaphragm is constant, right? It is not changing. Area is constant. So force will be directly proportional to pressure, and we know that pressure is directly proportional to the deflection shown on the scale. Deflection shown on the scale is proportional to the pressure. So we can write it as F proportional to X. Okay? F proportional to P, and P is proportional to X. So we can write it as force will be directly proportional to deflection of the scale. Force will be directly proportional to deflection of the scale, right? And later we can calibrate this deflection in terms of the force. Okay. Now let us talk about advantages and disadvantages of hydraulic load cell. Okay. So the hydraulic load cell has very fast response. Very fast response. Okay. Very fast response. And it has high range. High range. The hydraulic load cell has high range. It can measure force up to 200 kilonewton. It can measure force up to 200 kilonewton. And if you talk about disadvantage of the hydraulic load cell, that is the disadvantage of the load cell is that you need to take some precaution while measuring force with the help of hydraulic load cell. So you need to take precautions Okay, need to take safety precaution for the measurement of force with the help of hydraulic load. So this is all about our hydraulic load cell. Next we are going to discuss about pneumatic type load cell. Okay. So guys, let us now talk about pneumatic load cell, that is second kind of load cell. In this type of load cell, we use air instead of fluid, unlike hydraulic load cell. Okay. Pneumatic means related to air. Pneumatic means related to air. Related to air. As in the case of hydraulic load cell, we were using fluid to transmit the pressure or to counterbalance the force. We were using fluid, okay, some kind of fluid or some kind of oil to transmit the pressure. Similarly, in the case of pneumatic load cell, we are using air to transmit the load cell, or in other words, we can say that to counterbalance the force applied, we are using air. Okay, so this particular load cell is based on the counterbalance principle. This particular load cell is based on counterbalance principle. Okay. Now, before going further into the operation of the pneumatic load cell, let us understand about the schematic diagram and different components used in the making of pneumatic load cell. Okay. So, as in the case of hydraulic load cell, there was a diaphragm. Diaphragm is an element which is pressure sensitive element. This is your diaphragm. Okay. This is your diaphragm. Second part here is flapper and nozzle arrangement. This is flapper and nozzle arrangement. Okay. This is flapper and nozzle arrangement. Okay. Sorry, this is not diaphragm. This is your diaphragm. This is diaphragm. Okay. Now the air pressure which is used to counterbalance the force applied is measured by this pressure gauge. This is pressure gauge. Sometimes we will be using a manometer here. Sometimes manometer is used. There are different arrangements, different construction, different components used in the pneumatic load cell. This is one of the types of the pneumatic load cell. Okay. At the place of pressure gauge, we can be using manometer or some other kind of pressure gauge, right? So now let us talk about its operation. Okay, this is flapper, and this is nozzle. So I have written this combined flapper and nozzle arrangement, right? So when you apply force on this flapper, then what happens? It blocks the nozzle. Okay, it blocks the nozzle. The opening here is an opening. When you apply force, this flapper goes downward. Okay, this flapper goes downward, and it blocks the opening of the nozzle, right? And the air present in this chamber, this is air chamber. So the different components in the case of pneumatic load cell are air chamber, diaphragm, flapper and nozzle, and fourth one is some pressure gauge. You can use manometer for the indication purpose. You can use burden tube, etc. Okay. So when the force is applied, let us now get into the operation part. When the force is applied on this flapper, it blocks the nozzle, right? It blocks the nozzle and air inlet is opened with help of some valve and air goes into this air chamber. This is your air chamber, right? And the pressure is created in this air chamber because this part is closed, right? This part is closed, and now the pressure is built up in this air chamber and it tries to push upwards this diaphragm. Okay, and again when the force and the pressure force in this air chamber gets equal, the pressure is measured by this pressure gauge. The pressure is measured by this pressure gauge. How will you know that the air pressure and force is in balanced condition? Okay, so for that this arrangement is given, flapper and nozzle arrangement is given. Okay, when this flapper comes into the floating position again, when the air pressure is being applied and when the air pressure force created by this air pressure gets equal to the force applied, then what happens, this flapper gets into the floating position and that force, that pressure is measured by this pressure gauge. That pressure is measured by this pressure gauge and the pressure is calibrated in terms of the force applied here. Okay, this is the working principle of the pneumatic load cell. So we know that same principle as in the case of hydraulic load cell, pressure is equal to force upon area. Pressure is equal to force upon area. So pressure will be directly proportional to force, or force will be directly proportional to pressure. That pressure is measured here and that pressure is calibrated in terms of the force applied here. Okay, so suppose you have connected manometer here, then air pressure will be connected, this opening will be connected to some manometer and the manometer fluid will be given some deflection in its fluid, right? And that deflection will be proportional to force because that pressure, the air pressure which is being measured by the manometer will be proportional to some deflection or height of the manometer, and because force is proportional to pressure and pressure is proportional to the height change in the manometric fluid, then force will be directly proportional to the height. Okay, and that change in height of the manometric fluid will give the force applied here. Similarly, if you have connected burden tube as in the case of hydraulic load cell, then force will be directly proportional to deflection of the scale in the burden tube. Okay, this is your pneumatic load cell. Now let us talk about its advantages and disadvantages. I am writing advantages and disadvantages into, not writing separately, I am writing this combined. So the main disadvantage of the pneumatic load cell is that it has limited range. It can measure pressure, it can measure pressure up to 20 kilonewton. This is disadvantage. It can measure pressure up to 20 kilonewton only. The advantage of the pneumatic type of load cell is that it can be used in explosive and hazardous environment. It can be used in explosive and hazardous environment. This is advantage. This is advantage of the pneumatic type load cell, right? And other disadvantage of the pneumatic type of load cell is that it is sluggish. It is sluggish and slow. Its response time is slower as compared to the hydraulic load cell. Hydraulic load cell is fast, but the pneumatic type of load cell is sluggish and slow. This is disadvantage. This is disadvantage of pneumatic type of load cell, right? So this is your pneumatic type of load cell. Next, we are going to discuss about strain gauge type of load cell. Okay, so we'll be discussing strain gauge type of load cell. Okay, this is some basic idea about strain gauge type of load cell. So in the strain gauge type of load cell, we have elastic structure. Okay, we have elastic structure, and on this elastic structure we will be connecting strain gauges. We will be connecting strain gauges. Okay, so strain gauge type of load cell consists of two components, that is elastic structure and strain gauges. Now the connection of strain gauges should be such that it is in Poisson's configuration. We have studied this in the strain gauge part of this video series. Okay, so strain gauges which are attached on the elastic structure should be in Poisson's configuration. Poisson's configuration. Okay, we have studied about this Poisson's configuration, how strain gauges are attached in Poisson's configuration, right? So there are two pairs of strain gauges connected on the elastic structure. Two pairs of strain gauges. Okay? Two pairs of strain gauges means we will be having four strain gauges. Okay? Two pairs means four strain gauges. Okay? Four strain gauges. One pair will be connected in the direction of the force. One pair will be connected in the direction of the force. Okay? One pair will be connected in the direction of the force, along the direction of the force, or in the direction of the force. Okay, and other pair will be connected. Second pair, that is second pair, will be connected along the circumference of the elastic structure. Second pair will be connected along the circumference. Along the circumference. So the first pair which is connected along the direction of the force will be experiencing which type of tensile force when the force is applied on this elastic structure, and the pair which is connected in the direction of the force will be experiencing which type of strain. Okay, so first pair which is connected along the direction of the force will be experiencing tensile force or compressive force. So if it is in the direction of the force, if the first pair is in the direction of the force, then what happens when the force is applied, for example, the force is applied like this on this elastic structure, then this elastic structure will be compressing. It will get compressed by this force. Okay? When this is compressed by the force, then strain gauge will also be compressed. So first pair which is connected in the direction of the force will be facing compressive strain. Okay? Will be facing compressive strain. So first pair will be facing compressive strain. Why compressive strain? Because it is connected in the or along the direction of the force. So compressive strain means resistance will be decreasing by delta R. So equivalent resistance after application of the force will be R minus delta R. And if second pair is connected along the circumference of this elastic structure, then second pair will be experiencing tensile force, tensile strain, tensile strain. That is R plus delta R plus delta R. Now, these two pairs of the strain gauges will be connected in Wheatstone bridge. These two pairs of the strain gauges will be connected in the Wheatstone bridge. Okay? The connection part is already covered in the previous lecture. How will you connect these strain gauges? So, if same strain is there, means if there are two compressive strains, then these compressive strains, these compressive strain gauges, the strain gauges which are experiencing compressive strain will be connected in opposite arms. Same strain, opposite arm, opposite strain, adjacent arms. Okay, this is already covered. Okay, so first pair means R minus delta R part. So after application of force, R minus delta R and R minus delta R, R minus delta R will be connected in opposite arms. Will be connected in opposite arms, and tensile strain R plus delta R and R plus delta R will be connected in opposite arms. Right? So excitation voltage will be given like this. Excitation voltage will be given E, and from here we will be taking voltage output V0. We will be taking voltage output V0. So here I am not deriving V0. We have already derived this formula V0. Okay. Now the important thing here is that the strain gauges are connected in Poisson's configuration. So for the Poisson's configuration, what is the voltage output? I have already told you guys. So voltage output, before that, before coming to voltage output, you need to remember one thing. If there is same strain, okay, I have just told you, same strain, then you need to connect the strain gauges in opposite arms. Same strain means you need to connect the strain gauges in opposite arms of the Wheatstone bridge. And if opposite strains are experienced, if opposite strains, opposite strain is experienced, then you need to connect those strain gauges in the adjacent arms. Okay? Just remember this. Adjacent arms. So this is the method technique to connect the strain gauges in the Wheatstone bridge to measure the output voltage. Because these strain gauges are attached to this elastic structure in the Poisson's configuration, then what will be your voltage output? V naught will be equal to E by 2, E by 2 gauge factor, gauge factor, okay, gauge factor into strain epsilon 1 plus mu. V naught will be equal to E by 2 gauge factor epsilon into 1 plus mu. Okay, where all the terms be clear. E is the excitation voltage, Gf means gauge factor, epsilon means strain, epsilon means strain produced by the force. So this is strain. Mu is the Poisson's ratio. Mu is the Poisson's ratio. Right? So by connecting these strain gauges, we can measure the output voltage from this formula, that is E by 2 gauge factor epsilon into 1 plus mu. So let us talk about this advantages of the strain gauge type of load cell, that it is used for high range of force or weight measurement. Okay, the range of the strain gauge type of load cell is good, range is high. Second, it is preferred under dynamic configuration. Means if the force applied on the strain gauge is dynamic, means it is changing with respect to time, then this type of load cell is preferred. Okay, response is very fast and quick. So if something is dynamic, then it is clear that the response should be very fast and quick. Okay, application. So the strain gauge type of load cell is used in the weighing machines and roadside weighing machines. For example, if you want to measure weight of the truck, okay, if you want to check that the truck which is moving on the road is overloaded or not, then that load cell is used for that purpose, right? So how can you calibrate the voltage output in terms of the force? Voltage output in terms of the force, V naught is equal to E by 2 gauge factor into epsilon 1 plus mu. Okay, so force which is being applied is directly proportional to strain. Force is directly proportional to strain, okay, and the strain is directly proportional to V naught. The strain is directly proportional to V naught. So we can calibrate the voltage output in terms of the force. Okay, so this is the principle of strain gauge type of load cell. Okay, thank you.